What if I told you that the massive 50% pay bump and the prestigious director title you were just offered isn't actually reward?
Oh, man.
Like,
Yeah.
what if, psychologically speaking, it's actually a perfectly designed, highly compensated cage?
It's the ultimate paradox of the modern workplace, really. We spend our entire lives climbing, only to realize the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall.
Right. Welcome to another deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're on a mission to completely dismantle the idea of the quote-unquote dream job.
Absolutely.
If you're listening to this right now and you've ever felt like you should want a certain promotion, or maybe you felt totally alienated by an incredible job offer.
The one your family tells you you'd be crazy to turn down.
Exactly. If you've ever felt that friction, today's discussion is going to be a massive aha moment for you.
It really is. It's going to explain so much of that internal friction. That quiet, nagging sense of dread you feel when a recruiter messages you about an amazing opportunity.
Yeah, totally. And our entire deep dive today revolves around a really paradigm-shifting presentation titled The Opportunity Mirror.
Which is just a fascinating body of work.
It really is. And the data behind this isn't just like a handful of surveys either. We are looking at comprehensive SDTEST data spanning 1,658 professionals,
Across 83 countries, right?
83 countries, and 20 different languages. And the core premise is this: your career destination doesn't just reflect your ambition, it reveals your underlying psychological value system.
Exactly. It's not just what you want to do. It is a mirror reflecting who you are, fundamentally wired to be in the world right now.
And the corporate world historically has just been notoriously bad at understanding this.
Oh, completely. I mean, they operate on a model of human motivation that is essentially obsolete.
So I want to paint a picture for you, our listener,
Mhm.
because the source material opens with a really powerful visual metaphor. Slide 1 shows an illustration.
Yes, the prism metaphor.
Right, so picture a solid, blindingly bright beam of white light. In the corporate world, that white light represents the standard definition of a good job. Money, power, prestige, upward mobility.
The classic package.
Exactly. Now imagine that single beam of white light hitting a glass prism. What happens? It immediately fractures.
Right. It splits into a vibrant, multicolored rainbow spectrum shooting out the other side.
And okay, let's unpack this. That fracture is the entire thesis of our deep dive today. A good job looks completely different depending on the psychological lens of the person looking at it.
That prism metaphor is just the perfect baseline. The corporate world usually treats top-tier talent as a monolith.
Like everyone wants the exact same thing.
Exactly. Executives assume everyone wants that same white light. They assume every high performer wants the exact same cocktail of visibility, equity, and a larger headcount to manage.
But when you pass that assumption through the prism of human psychology, it separates.
Right, into distinct colors. And in this framework, those colors represent distinct life conditions.
Life conditions, I like that phrase.
Yeah, they are deeply ingrained value systems that dictate what our brains consider meaningful, what feels safe, and what feels rewarding.
So if a company is broadcasting white light, they are actually communicating absolutely nothing to a person whose brain only registers, say, the color green or the color yellow.
Precisely. I mean, they're broadcasting on a frequency the candidate can't even perceive, let alone be motivated by.
Wow.
You could offer them the world, but if it's the wrong world, they're going to walk away.
Which brings us to the trap that so many of us fall into. The presentation illustrates this beautifully. Slide 2 shows an illustration.
And it's a stark contrast.
It really is.
Yeah.
Picture on one side of your mind a rigid, massive, grid-like skyscraper. It is the epitome of corporate dominance. This is what they call the universal pitch.
Come work for us. We're the biggest. We pay the most.
Exactly. But on the other side of this concept, we see how people actually react to this pitch. And it is not with universal gratitude.
Not at all.
For some, they view that skyscraper as a systemic trap, literally feeling like a geometric cage.
Right.
Others experience it as soul-crushing anonymity, feeling like scattered, disconnected nodes floating in a void. And a third group experiences this massive corporate structure as a destruction of trust, like broken chains.
What's fascinating here is that it highlights a profound psychological disconnect. The market provides one solution, but the human psyche requires a dozen.
But wait, I have to play devil's advocate here, though. Let me push back a bit. Isn't an exciting opportunity universally defined by prestige, a massive global scale, and a high salary.
You would think so,
I
right?
mean, let's be real. If you offer someone a senior executive role at a Fortune 500 company with a $500,000 compensation package, how on earth can anyone logically experience that as a systemic trap?
It sounds totally counterintuitive, I know. But the data reveals a striking paradox. What one top-tier performer sees as the absolute ultimate arena for impact, the summit they've been striving to reach since business school, another equally talented, equally ambitious performer experiences as a literal cage.
A cage, even with the massive salary attached to it.
Especially with the massive salary, because to certain psychological profiles, the salary feels like the padlock on the cage.
Like golden handcuffs.
Exactly. Let's break down the mechanics of why this happens. Career destinations are not universal upgrades. They are not absolute, objective truths. They are psychological mirrors.
So it's reflecting what you already value.
Precisely. If your core value system prioritizes deep, authentic connection, and you are dropped into a massive grid-like building where you're just an employee ID number,
Tasked with optimizing quarterly profits across 1,000 anonymous faces.
right, your nervous system doesn't register that as a promotion, it registers it as a threat. The prestige means absolutely nothing if the life conditions are toxic to your underlying values.
That completely flips the script on how we talk about ambition. We treat ambition as a single vertical ladder that everyone is desperately trying to climb.
Yeah, we really do.
But you're saying they're totally different structures,
Yeah.
and some of them aren't even ladders at all, which leads us to mapping out this terrain. Slide 3 shows an illustration.
And this is where we get into the geometry of it all.
Right. The research organizes these global value systems into 4 main geometric shapes. I want to walk through these shapes because they anchor everything we're about to discuss.
The geometry really helps solidify the psychology. It gives us a tangible way to visualize abstract human needs.
Okay, first we have the grid. Picture structured, rigid, intersecting lines. This is colored orange and red in the data, and it represents the international market leader.
The mega corporation.
Yep. Second, we have the woven ring. It's circular, interconnected, and smooth. Colored green and purple, this represents the SME, the small and medium enterprise.
Yeah.
Third is the morphing node, colored turquoise. It's fluid, almost biological, constantly adapting. This represents the startup or scale-up environment.
Very dynamic.
And finally, the web, colored yellow. It's a sprawling, decentralized network where, interestingly, the presentation notes that size is simply not a factor.
And we really need to emphasize to the listener that this isn't just a survey of temporary job market trends.
Like, it's not about tech versus finance.
Right. This isn't an article about whether tech is the hot sector this year. It's a map of what different consciousness levels consider worth more than a prestigious title.
Worth more than the title. I mean, that is going to offend a lot of traditional HR managers.
It should challenge them. For example, look closely at the data for the yellow system, that sprawling web shape. The data shows that yellow actually strongly rejects the grid model.
It has a negative correlation, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not that these individuals couldn't get a job at an international market leader. They are often the most brilliant minds in their fields. It's that their psychology actively repels that structure. I challenge you, listening right now, to just think about those shapes. Picture them in your mind. The highly structured grid, the intimate connected ring, the biological fluid node, or the boundaryless web.
Which one do you intuitively gravitate toward?
Exactly. Your immediate gut reaction is your value system speaking to you.
Let's dive deep into the people who actually do want the grid. The presentation refers to them as the arena seekers. Slide 4 shows an illustration.
It's a very intense space.
It is. Picture that sprawling, rigid grid with bright orange and red pathways mapping distinct, highly structured routes through the corporate labyrinth.
Right.
Think of this grid as a massive, high-stakes gladiator coliseum. 2 different people want to walk into that arena. They both want to fight. They both want to win, but for completely fundamentally different reasons.
That arena analogy is spot on. The grid provides the infrastructure for competition, but the motivation for competing splits sharply between orange and red.
So let's start with the orange value system. The presentation classifies orange as the meritocrat. I'm looking at this and wondering, what is the internal logic here? Why do they actively choose the massive, sometimes exhausting scale of the grid?
For the orange meritocrat, scale is the only valid way to prove merit. The global stage is a proof of concept for their own competence.
Prove it to themselves or to everyone else?
Both, really. If you consider yourself the absolute best at what you do, the smartest engineer, the sharpest financial analyst, you do not want to prove that in a small room with 10 people.
Right, that's not a big enough audience.
Exactly. You want an arena where your individual output earns maximum recognition, maximum equity, and undeniable career capital. They need the objective scoreboard that only a massive scale can provide.
So they want the big title at the big firm because it's undeniable mathematical proof that they won the game. It's not just about the money, it's about the money as a metric of their capability.
Exactly. The money is just data on the scoreboard.
Right.
But this psychological profile has a very specific, very acute pain point.
Which is,
They despise growth at all costs environments that trade true meritocracy for just hoarding market share or, engaging in corporate nepotism.
what does that look like in practice? How
Yeah.
does a company alienate an orange meritocrat?
Imagine an orange top performer who just optimized a massive logistics pipeline, saving the company millions. They expect to be rewarded objectively based on that output.
That makes perfect sense.
But instead, the promotion goes to someone who has simply been at the company 5 years longer or someone who plays golf with the VP.
Oh man, that would drive them crazy.
In that moment, the orange meritocrat realizes the game is rigged. The promotions are based on politics and tenure rather than objective output and innovation.
And then what?
When that happens, the grid instantly stops being an arena of merit and becomes a bureaucratic trap. They will leave, not because it's too hard, but because it's unfair.
That is such a crucial distinction. Okay, now let's look at the red value system within this same grid. The presentation calls red the competitor. They're also drawn to this massive coliseum, but the underlying logic feels much more primal than the orange meritocrat.
It is incredibly primal. Red chooses scale because it's a massive battlefield. For the competitor, they require high-stakes, highly visible competitive hierarchies.
They don't care about a fair scoreboard.
They don't care about a fair objective scoreboard like Orange does. They care about dominance. They need a system where individual power is unambiguous.
Unambiguous, meaning like, I am the undisputed boss, you are not, and everyone knows it.
Precisely. For the red psychology, the woven ring, the SMEs, the smaller, intimate companies are far too blurry to conquer.
Blurry how?
Well, if you are in a company where everyone is sharing tasks, building consensus, and checking in on each other's feelings, red feels suffocated. There is no clear enemy, no clear victory. They want a massive mountain to climb, a flag to plant, and subordinates to direct.
Which brings us directly to their pain point.
Ugh.
Ambiguous authority, undefined stakes, and forced collaborative compromises. Let's say you take a brilliant red competitor, a top-tier sales director, who just crushed their quota by 300%, and you force them into a cross-functional consensus-building workshop.
Oh, that's a nightmare for them.
Right, where they have to share decision-making power with 3 other department heads. You aren't developing their leadership skills. You are practically torturing them.
You are stripping away their core driver. If we synthesize this, both orange and red need the global scale of the grid.
But for different reasons.
Exactly. Orange wants a fair, rational game governed by clear rules, while red wants a visceral battlefield where they can exercise raw power and claim total dominance.
And the tragedy of modern corporate structure is that it often accidentally blends these two together, doesn't it?
Constantly. Companies build structures that are too bureaucratic for red to conquer and too political for orange to trust, which ultimately frustrates both of these high-performance engines.
That clarifies so much about corporate burnout at the top levels. But let's shift gears completely. Slide 5 shows an illustration.
Moving away from the grid.
Yes. What about the top-tier talent who looks at that giant coliseum, looks at the money and the titles, and just says, no thank you?
The intimacy seekers.
Exactly. We are moving to the woven ring, the symbol for the small and medium enterprise. And I have to ask, why on earth would a highly educated, fiercely intelligent talent actively avoid the massive global stage?
It's a great question.
I mean, from a traditional viewpoint, isn't that just leaving money and influence on the table? Are they just, less ambitious?
That is the ultimate grid perspective question. When you ask, aren't they leaving money on the table, you are evaluating them using orange metrics.
Okay, fair point.
But the intimacy seekers are operating on a completely different psychological logic. To them, ambition is not vertical, it is horizontal. It is about depth. They are actively trading institutional scale for soul.
Trading scale for soul. That is a heavy concept. Let's look at how the green value system, defined as the relational, executes this trade.
Green chooses the SME structure for psychological safety, and authentic connection. They seek environments where empathy is the actual infrastructure of the company.
Not just an HR policy.
Exactly. In a green organization, empathy isn't just an exception you invoke when someone has a family emergency. It is the daily operating system.
Wow.
To the green mindset, the soul of the organization, the human connection, the shared vulnerability matters infinitely more than the scale of its market cap.
I'm trying to imagine how a traditional corporate executive views this. They probably see it as soft or inefficient, right?
They often do, but green talent is incredibly effective because their teams have unparalleled trust. They don't waste energy on internal politics or backstabbing.
But they have a pain point, too.
Yes, their pain point is acute. It's being asked to trade that relational depth and authentic belonging for global institutional prestige.
Let's run a scenario. You have a green employee who has spent 3 years building a deeply connected, high-performing local team. They know everyone's kids' names, they know their struggles, they operate like a family.
A classic green environment.
Then upper management comes in and says, "Great news, you've done such a good job, we're promoting you to a global director role. You'll oversee 500 people across 3 continents, you'll mostly interact via spreadsheets or quarterly Zoom calls."
Management thinks they're giving them the moon.
To management, that's a massive reward.
But to the green employee, they don't hear a promotion. They hear a sentence of exile. You are ripping them out of the nutrient-rich soil of their community and planting them in a sterile, fluorescent-lit grid.
They hear a direct threat to their core value system.
Absolutely. And corporations routinely misunderstand this. When the green employee hesitates, the company thinks, oh, we just need to offer more money.
Which doesn't solve the problem at all.
Right. They throw a higher salary at the green employee, completely missing that money cannot buy psychological safety.
And what about purple? The data labels purple as the kinship builder. This is also tied heavily to the woven ring and the SME, but the underlying motivation feels distinct from green's focus on empathy.
Yes, purple is profoundly focused on continuity, safety, and tradition. While green wants to connect deeply in the present moment, purple wants to build something that lasts generations.
So it's more about legacy.
In a way, yes. They choose SMEs because they function like a modern tribe. The logic here is fascinating when you look at what they reject.
What do they reject?
Startups. Startups often destroy trust through hypervelocity, constant pivoting, firing people to extend runway, changing the mission every 6 months.
And massive firms?
Massive global firms destroy trust through sheer size, anonymity, and layoffs designed to boost stock prices. But an SME, a local mid-sized business, it accumulates belonging over time.
You know the founders, you know the history in the building, you know the direct impact your company has on the local town.
Exactly. The pain point for purple is constant movement and disruption. They despise hyper-growth cultures that treat accumulated loyalty as a liability or an inefficiency.
Think about the mantra of modern tech culture. Move fast and break things. To an orange or red mentality, that sounds exciting. It sounds like disruption and opportunity. But to a purple kinship builder, that phrase is biologically stressful.
Biologically stressful, yes.
They hear that and think, why on earth would I want to break my community? I've spent a decade building trust here, and you want to disrupt it for a 10% gain in user acquisition.
That is the exact internal monologue. Corporate recruiters completely miss that to these green and purple talent groups, massive scale and rapid disruption are visceral threats to intimacy and trust, not exciting rewards.
You can't just bribe them with stock options.
No, you cannot buy their loyalty with prestige or equity in a volatile startup. You can only earn their loyalty with genuine community and long-term stability.
Okay, so we've established the arena fighters and the tribe builders. But if we move to the next layer of this data, this is where it gets incredibly complex. Slide 6 shows an illustration.
The system shapers.
Yes. We are looking at the fluid dynamic web for the yellow psychology and the organic morphing node for turquoise. And the most striking thing about the data is that they don't just dislike the corporate grid. They seem to have completely evolved past it.
Evolved past it is the scientifically accurate way to frame it. In developmental psychology, these are often referred to as second-tier thinking systems.
Second tier.
Yeah. They look at the traditional corporate obsession with prestige, scale, and dominance, and they don't just find it unappealing, they find it incredibly limiting, inefficient, and frankly, a bit immature.
Let's unpack the yellow psychology, the optimizer. The presentation notes their destination is practically unbound. They reject the international market leader entirely, and the data explicitly states that for them, size is not a factor.
Right.
It says their internal logic is post-prestige. I want to really dig into this because in a capitalist society, the idea of a top-tier professional being post-prestige sounds almost mythical.
It does sound mythical to the grid mindset.
What does a post-prestige professional actually want on a Tuesday morning?
They want to solve complex, fascinating problems without being slowed down by ego or bureaucracy. They optimized for cross-functional systemic leverage rather than hierarchical elevation.
Systemic leverage. Break that down for us.
Think of a massive corporation as a giant, incredibly complicated clockwork machine.
Okay.
An orange meritocrat wants to climb to the top of the machine so everyone can see them. A red competitor wants to own the machine.
And yellow.
The yellow optimizer wants to be the architect, pulling the levers behind the scenes to make the gears run more elegantly. They do not care if their title on LinkedIn is vice president or special projects consultant.
They just want access.
They care about how much access they have to the entire system. Can they talk to the engineers, the marketers, and the supply chain teams simultaneously to fix a systemic bottleneck? If yes, they are happy.
But if they have to ask permission from 3 different managers just to view the data.
They are miserable.
So imagine a company trying to reward a brilliant yellow optimizer. The CEO calls them in and says, "You did incredible work optimizing our data pipeline. As a reward, we're giving you a corner office, the title of Senior VP, and 20 direct reports to manage."
The CEO thinks they just gave the ultimate gift.
Right. But the yellow optimizer just sees 20 administrative bottlenecks. They see performance reviews they have to conduct, vacation time they have to approve, and office politics they have to mediate.
Exactly.
They see their ability to do deep systemic work completely vanishing.
Precisely. Their primary pain point is being forced to frame their transformative, out-of-the-box contributions through rigid, traditional org chart metrics.
Like standard KPIs.
Yeah. If you try to manage a yellow systems thinker with a standard KPI checklist or force them into a rigid 9-to-5 desk routine, they will simply leave. They require extreme malleability to function at their highest level.
And then we had turquoise, the steward. Their preferred shape is that morphing node, which the data correlates to the startup or scale-up environment.
But not just any startup.
Right. It's not just a tech startup building a new food delivery app. The logic here is that they seek structural resonance.
Right. Turquoise is the most expansive value system on this map. They need an organization large enough to actually affect global systems, but young and malleable enough to be redesigned toward whole system ecological coherence.
So they're thinking big picture.
The biggest picture. Turquoise thinks in terms of the entire planet, human evolution, and deep long-term sustainability. They are not looking for a quick exit or a massive IPO.
They don't just want to win the game of capitalism. They want to redesign the board so that the game itself stops destroying the players and the planet.
Exactly. Their pain point is being stuck in crystallized, rigid systems that are optimized strictly for extraction, like pure orange or red grids, with absolutely no room for holistic redesign.
Give an example.
If a turquoise steward is working at a massive fossil fuel company, they aren't there to maximize shareholder value. They're there trying to pivot the entire behemoth toward renewable infrastructure.
And if they can't?
If they realize the system is too crystallized to change, they suffer deep psychological distress and exit.
So synthesizing this second-tier group, yellow wants to optimize the complex levers behind the scenes to make the machine brilliant, and turquoise wants to harmonize the entire machine with the world around it so it serves humanity.
A beautiful summary.
Traditional promotions, higher salaries, and corner offices are totally irrelevant to both of these groups if those rewards restrict their systemic freedom.
Irrelevant and often seen as a trap.
It's wild to think about how much brilliant, world-changing talent we lose because HR departments force system shapers to act like arena seekers.
It is arguably one of the greatest drains on global talent innovation today. We are misallocating our most brilliant minds. But speaking of the globe, the data we are looking at takes a massive, fascinating turn right here.
Yes. This was my favorite part of the research because it is a major plot twist. Slide 7 shows an illustration.
And it completely breaks the pattern we've been establishing.
It really does. The presentation shows a spectrum timeline of all the colorful value systems we've just discussed. But the line abruptly ends in a completely shattered blue gear or cog with a giant glowing warning sign next to it that simply reads, "Context required."
It's very dramatic.
The neat, predictable global rules we've established suddenly break down completely.
This is where the data gets incredibly nuanced and, frankly, brilliant. We call this the rule of blue. We've seen that an orange meritocrat behaves roughly the same way, whether they are sitting in an office in New York, Tokyo, or London.
Right, they always want the scoreboard.
But the blue value system does not behave universally. It is entirely dependent on geography and history.
Before we explain the fracture, what does blue fundamentally value at its core?
Blue psychology seeks legitimate institutions, absolute truth, moral structure, and reciprocal duty. They want rules, they want order, and they want to do what is right according to a higher authority.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the catch, and the reason that Krog is shattered in the illustration, is that what defines a legitimate authority depends entirely on the specific cultural life conditions of the region. The data proves that blue fractured completely along geographic lines across Europe.
Let's walk through this map of Europe because the variations are stunning. Slide 8 shows an illustration.
Yes, looking at Great Britain, Poland, and Germany.
Exactly. We have 3 very distinct outcomes for this exact same blue psychology. Let's start with Great Britain. The data shows that in Great Britain, the blue value system leans heavily toward the international leader, the massive grid.
Very strong correlation there.
A plus 0.7945 correlation. Why does British blue seek the massive corporation?
Because for the British blue psychology, particularly in the post-Brexit landscape, prestige acts as stability. In a world of political chaos and economic uncertainty, global legacy institutions, the massive century-old banks, the historic multinational firms, they carry genuine moral authority.
They're like the bedrock.
They act as anchors of continuity. For a blue thinker in the UK, joining a massive legacy firm feels like joining a legitimate protective order, so they seek the massive grid.
But then you look east to Poland. The data shows Polish blue swings in the completely opposite direction. They heavily favor the SME, the woven ring, with a plus 0.5651 correlation.
Right.
They actively reject the massive corporate entities. How can the exact same psychological desire for order produce the exact opposite career choice?
This is where historical context is vital, and it's why you can never separate psychology from history. This is about cultural memory.
Cultural memory.
For Poland, with its deep post-socialist history and the legacy of the Eastern Bloc, massive, state-like, monolithic entities are viewed with profound suspicion.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think of
The
that.
cultural memory dictates that massive structure often equals coercion, surveillance, and a loss of individuality.
So a massive international conglomerate doesn't look like an anchor of stability to them. It looks like a new regime.
Exactly. So for Polish blue talent, legitimate authority cannot be found in a faceless grid. It is found in the SME.
The local enterprise.
The local enterprise represents structure without coercion. It represents institutions as they should be accountable, visible, deeply tied to the community, and human scale. They can see the owner, they know where the money goes, and that transparency creates the moral legitimacy that blue craves.
That is fascinating. It's the exact same need for safety, manifesting in opposite behaviors because of the soil they grew up on.
It's beautiful, really.
And then there's Germany, which offers a third variation. German blue also leans toward the SME, but for a very different reason than Poland's fear of coercion.
Yes, German blue is deeply tied to the economic and cultural concept of the Mittelstand.
The Mittelstand, right?
These are the mid-sized, highly specialized, often family-owned companies that have been the backbone of the German economy for generations. For German blue, legitimate authority is not just about transparency. It is rooted in reciprocal duty.
Reciprocal duty, meaning the company takes care of the town, honors local craft, and provides generational stability.
And in exchange, the worker provides absolute, unquestioning loyalty and craftsmanship.
Exactly. But the research notes something critical here. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, restructuring multinationals began buying up these local companies.
Right.
They would come in, acquire a beloved local manufacturer, and immediately lay people off to optimize quarterly profits for distant shareholders.
To an orange executive in America, that's just good business. That's optimizing the supply chain.
But to the German blue worker,
To the German blue worker, that action violated the sacred core contract of reciprocal duty. It was a moral betrayal. This historical friction pushed German blue talent even further away from the multinational grid and deeper into local obligation and the SME sector.
if we unpack the profound implications of this, let me put myself in the shoes of a global HR director. Let's say I'm sitting in a high-rise in Chicago, and I've been tasked with deploying a single unified recruitment strategy across our European branches.
Good luck with that.
Right. If I don't know this data, I am going to fail spectacularly. I might use a British prestige and legacy pitch on a Polish engineer, completely unaware that their blue values make them inherently distrust monolithic power.
You would be repelling the exact talent you are trying to attract. You cannot standardize human history. You have to speak the language of their specific life conditions. You have to understand the ghosts of their cultural memory, or you will be met with a brick wall.
Which really brings us to the crux of this entire analysis. We've mapped the terrain, we've seen the geometric shapes of ambition, we've explored the deep history of Europe. The presentation distills all of this down into a single balanced image. Slide 9 shows an illustration.
It's a very striking visual.
Picture a circle. Around the perimeter of this circle, all the geometric symbols we've discussed, the grid, the ring, the node, the web, are perfectly balanced. None is higher or lower than the other.
They're all equal.
And right in the center, the text reads, "Scale is not inherently superior to intimacy." I love that phrase. So I'm looking at you, listening to this deep dive right now. What does this all mean for you tomorrow morning when you log into work?
It means we have to pause and ask what the researchers call the core diagnostic question. The presentation highlights this beautifully, and it's a question everyone should ask themselves at least once a year.
What is it?
Which value system is generating your career answer? And does the destination you're actually chasing match the life you are actively trying to build?
Let's make that concrete. Are you grinding 80 hours a week chasing the grid because you genuinely possess a red or orange psychology that thrives on dominance and scale? Or are you chasing it because your MBA professor, your parents, and LinkedIn told you that's what success mathematically looks like?
That is the multi-million-dollar question. The debate we need to be having isn't about job market trends. It's not a superficial argument about whether remote work is better than hybrid or if tech pays better than finance.
It's deeper than that.
It is fundamentally a question of deep internal alignment between your psychological color and the structural shape of the organization.
But before we get into the applied psychology of how to actually fix this in the real world, the presentation makes a hard stop to clear up some major misconceptions. We have to myth-bust this data, or it can be misused. Slide 13 shows an illustration.
It's good they included this because people jump to conclusions quickly.
There are 3 massive myths that people immediately assume when they see these psychological color codes. Let's run through these switches. Myth 1 is destiny.
The destiny myth.
The assumption here is, are we just permanently wired this way from birth? If I test as red today, am I just a hyper-competitive gladiator forever?
The reality switch flips that to a hard no. Human values are not static, they evolve.
How so?
Well, a red performer who is currently obsessed with individual dominance and crushing their competitors might experience a major life event. Maybe they become a parent, or maybe they suffer a catastrophic, hospitalizing burnout.
A major paradigm shift.
Right. Those events radically shift their life conditions. Suddenly, the arena doesn't feel exciting. It feels exhausting. They develop green awareness. They start craving intimacy, psychological safety, and connection. Preferences shift dynamically as the environment and our internal biology shift.
It's like changing the lens on a camera. The world looks completely different.
Exactly.
Myth 2 is uniformity. The assumption is, does every single individual perfectly match their color group? Like if I'm yellow, am I 100% yellow in every aspect of my life?
Again, no. These are group-level tendencies observed across thousands of professionals. They map the general gravity of specific conditions, but they are not individual, rigid prescriptions.
So we're more complex than just one color.
Human beings are mosaics. You might be primarily an orange meritocrat at work demanding a fair scoreboard and high equity, but you might have a very strong secondary drive of blue duty when it comes to your family or your local community. We slide across these spectrums.
And myth 3, which I think is
Business.
arguably the most toxic misconception we've discussed today. Hierarchy. The myth that corporate scale automatically equals higher ambition.
This is the most crucial reality check of the entire data set. We have been brainwashed to believe that bigger is better.
Yep.
But orange resident careers, the global market leaders, the massive tech conglomerates are not better or more advanced than green or purple ones. They simply solve for entirely different life conditions.
I want to really hammer this home. a highly skilled nurse operating deeply within a green SME community clinic, managing complex human emotions, life or death stakes, and deep relational trust, is operating with just as much, if not far more, ambition and cognitive complexity as a day trader operating in an orange grid on Wall Street.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're just playing entirely different games. The day trader is optimizing for scale and capital accumulation. The nurse is optimizing for depth, healing, and community resilience.
Both are valid.
Neither is structurally superior, but society heavily compensates and celebrates one over the other.
And when we finally understand that when we break the myth of vertical ambition, we can fundamentally change how we hire, manage, and retain brilliance. This brings us to the applied psychology playbook. Slide 10 shows an illustration.
This is where it gets highly actionable for managers.
Yes, the presentation outlines an incredible tool called the Employer Brand Translation Matrix. It's a grid showing exactly how standard HR pitches wildly backfire depending on the color and how to surgically fix them. Let's role-play this because it's incredibly revealing.
Sounds fun.
I'll play the role of the standard, slightly clueless HR rep giving the corporate pitch. You play the psychologist explaining what the talent actually hears, and then give us the proper reframe.
I'm ready. Let's see how much damage HR is doing.
Okay, our first target talent is yellow, the system optimizer. Standard HR pitch. We are the global market leader. We are massive. Join us, and you'll get a VP title.
Here is what the yellow talent actually hears. We optimize for prestige, not leverage. You will be bogged down in endless bureaucracy, fighting for budget approvals and committees. The reframed pitch must be, come solve systemic complexities outside formal hierarchies. We have a massive structural problem, and we will give you the autonomy to fix it. You have to offer them the puzzle, not the crown.
Offer the puzzle, not the crown. I love that. Next, our target talent is green, the relational intimacy seeker, standard HR pitch. We offer a fast-paced, hyper-growth environment. We're disrupting the industry.
What green hears, this is a burnout engine. There is absolutely zero psychological safety here. You will be a disposable cog.
Wow, totally opposite of what HR intends.
The reframed pitch should be, we prioritize relational intimacy, team cohesion, and genuine community impact. We protect our people. You have to offer them a tribe, not a treadmill.
Lastly, target talent is red, the competitor, standard HR pitch. We have a highly collaborative, flat culture where everyone's voice is equal and we make decisions together.
What red hears, there are ambiguous stakes, endless meetings, and absolutely no way for me to claim dominance or prove I am the best.
So what's the reframe? The reframed pitch. We offer highly visible arenas for you to conquer, with elite recognition and massive upside for individual performance.
It's like they are speaking entirely different languages. If you use the red pitch on a green employee, they will run out of the room. And this matters just as much for keeping the talent you already have as it does for hiring them. Slide 11 shows an illustration.
Yes, the manager's dilemma.
The research sets up something called the manager's dilemma. Imagine your absolute top performer, the person holding the department together, just declined a massive global promotion. They said no to the money and the title. What do you do?
If you don't know their color, you panic. You assume they are unmotivated, or you just blindly throw more money at them, which usually alienates them further. But if you know their psychological profile, you pivot.
Let's walk through the playbook. The data gives 3 specific paths. If they are orange, the meritocrat, you amplify the arena.
You realize they might not want to move to London for the global role, but they still want the scoreboard. So you tie their compensation strictly to their output, not their geographic location or title. You make their localized wins visible globally. They want the unquestionable merit, not just a localized vanity title.
And if they are yellow, the optimizer, and they turn down a promotion to management, you amplify the leverage. Do not force them to manage more people. Managing people drains their energy.
What do you do instead?
Instead, remove their positional bottlenecks. Give them a cross-functional systemic problem to solve that spans across departments. Give them the freedom to rewrite the underlying code of the company rather than just forcing them into a larger footprint on the org chart.
And if they are blue, particularly in regions with deep historical context like Germany or Poland, you honor the cultural contract.
Exactly.
If they turn down a global rotation, you emphasize reciprocal duty, craft integrity, and comprehensible local accountability. You have to prove that the multinational institution honors its local obligations before asking for their broader global loyalty.
It is precision management. It's treating people as complex, nuanced psychological ecosystems rather than just interchangeable cogs in a machine.
This precision doesn't just stop at HR. It extends to how companies pitch themselves to clients, too. Slide 12 shows an illustration.
The consulting strategy matrix.
Yes. It's a quick-fire list of what to pitch and what not to pitch, depending on the client's dominant value system. Let's run through a few of these because the business applications are massive.
For green clients, think nonprofits, purpose-driven organizations, or highly collaborative agencies. Do not pitch competing on startup equity or aggressive market capture. It feels entirely transactional and aggressive to them.
What should you pitch?
Do pitch SME-level intimacy as a structural competitive advantage for retaining their people. Show them how intimacy saves them money on turnover.
For blue clients in Germany, do not pitch global brand imitation or agile disruption. They will see you as a chaotic sellout. Duo lean completely into middle stand generational continuity, quality assurance, and reciprocal duty to the local economy.
For blue clients in the UK, do not pitch disruption and agility. Those words equal chaos and risk, especially post-Brexit. Do lean heavily into legacy excellence, institutional stability, and proven historical frameworks.
And for orange clients, the tech and finance giants do not pitch culture over size or work-life balance. They will literally laugh you out of the boardroom.
They really will.
Do pitch the visibility of individual achievement at a massive global scale, optimize metrics, and market dominance.
It all comes down to narrative alignment. You have to match the frequency of the receiver. But observing all of this, seeing how deeply ingrained these different values are, and then looking at the reality of the broader business world, it leads to a rather uncomfortable realization.
Which brings us to the climax of this entire analysis. The presentation confronts this head-on. Slide 14 shows an illustration.
The big picture critique.
Picture that colorful wireframe prism again, the one splitting the light. But hovering ominously over it is a massive, looming, stark white question mark. And the text poses a chilling concept, the prestige colonization.
It's a heavy concept.
And honestly, looking at this data, I have to ask you a very deep, provocative question. Have we allowed one single value system to completely brainwash how we think about success in the modern world?
This raises a profoundly important question, and it's the most critical takeaway of the entire research. The presentation critiques the entire prestige employer ecosystem.
Like who?
Think about the institutions that define elite success today. MBA rankings, elite MBB consulting firms, the FAAng tech monopolies. The data strongly suggests that this entire ecosystem is fundamentally, almost exclusively, an orange and red construct.
It's all about the grid.
It's entirely about the grid, the visibility, the massive scale, the competitive dominance, the relentless pursuit of quarterly growth. And let's be clear, there is nothing inherently wrong with orange and red values.
No, they build things.
They drive innovation, they build infrastructure, they push boundaries. But the colonization is that we have taken this specific oranger definition of success and ruthlessly marketed it as the universal definition of human success.
We've told everyone from the time they are in high school that if they aren't chasing the massive grid, if they aren't trying to scale, they are somehow failing at life.
Exactly. We've colonized the minds of our talent. And because of that, we are systematically misallocating brilliant, empathetic people.
How so?
We take brilliant yellow systems thinkers and deeply caring green relational talent, and we force them into arenas built for psychological logics they fundamentally do not share. We force the brilliant optimizer to act like a cutthroat gladiator. We force the empathetic kinship builder to act like a mercenary day trader.
And then corporate leaders wring their hands and act absolutely shocked when their engagement numbers plummet, when quiet quitting spikes across the industry, and when burnout becomes a literal global epidemic.
They hire consultants who tell them it's a talent shortage or a lack of resilience in the younger generation. But the data proves that is a lie. It is a systemic psychological mismatch.
The talent is fine.
The talent is brilliant, but the arena is toxic to them.
So how do we fix it? We end where we began, but this time with a solution. Slide 15 shows an illustration.
The final synthesis.
Picture the exact reverse of the very first metaphor we used. Instead of one beam of white light splitting, imagine a prism taking separated colorful light bands, the diverse value systems of orange, green, yellow, blue, and unifying them into a single, intensely bright, powerful white beam of collective human performance.
To create that unified beam, to actually harness the full spectrum of human potential, leaders have to finally let go of the universal pitch. They have to stop offering one generic, exciting opportunity and expecting everyone to bow down to it.
The research lays out 3 final, actionable steps to execute this. Step 1, map your talent. Stop assuming everyone wants the grid. Actually figure out the psychological colors of the people working for it.
That's the foundation.
Step 2, redesign the narrative.
Yeah.
Speak the exact language of your talent's life conditions. If they are green, speak the language of intimacy and safety. If they are yellow, speak the language of leverage and systemic freedom.
And step 3?
Step 3, build the right arena. Optimize the actual physical daily experience for their value system, not just whatever the current job market trend dictates.
If you can do that, if you can align the structure of the arena to the architecture of the mind, you don't just get compliant employees, you get deep, intrinsic, unstoppable motivation.
Align the arena to the mind. You know, the opportunity mirror really is a diagnostic breakthrough. It gives us a way to finally see the colors beneath the surface of ambition.
It really does.
It illuminates the invisible architecture of why we work and why we suffer when the work doesn't match our soul.
It gives us the vocabulary to finally have honest conversations about what we actually want out of our brief time on this planet.
But I want to leave you, the listener, with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you go about your day. If the corporate world has been colonized by just one or two colors of this spectrum, if orange and red have built the entire modern definition of success, what happens to our society, our politics, and our personal relationships when we start viewing everything through that limited, hyper-competitive prism?
It's a sobering thought.
Because if you look at the challenges facing the world today, we desperately need the yellow optimizers to solve our complex climate and logistical crises. We desperately need the green kinship builders and the purple tradition keepers to heal our incredibly fractured, lonely communities. So I ask you, are you living a life designed for your actual, authentic values? Or are you exhausting yourself, fighting in a grid built by someone else's? Keep questioning the pitch. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time.